Okay, so we're up and recording. So again, I'll be muting you guys. Welcome to the SKB Zoom and Share. If you want to talk, you can either on your device, you can press the mute button or unmute, or you can hold your space bar down and ask questions of Suzie. David here will be giving you a quick introduction of Suzie, and then we'll be switching over to Suzie's camera so you can see her better. So take it away, David. Go.
Well, I'd like to welcome everybody here to our first of the season Zoom and Share. This is our prelude system we have for the upcoming SKB workshop out in Wyoming coming up in the fall in September. And we do these in order to introduce people to two things. One is to the instructors, mostly for people who haven't been to the workshop and haven't worked with somebody. They get a chance to meet them and see them. Also, we do it because now we have this Zoom component to our workshop. And so we'll be doing a very large mega Zoom aspect for the workshop in the fall as well. If you can't come out, don't worry. Put your pants on, come to your TV, come to your computer. I want to just give us a little bit of a highlight here of who's going to be talking today. Those of you who know Suzie, that's one thing. But if you don't know Suzie, Seerey-Lester is the wife of John Seerey-Lester. They're both very talented artists. And John passed away last year. And Suzie and John have been part of the SKB workshop for 20 years at least. And but in respect to Suzie and her own artistic background, I thought I'd give you a couple highlights here. If you know what the Birds and Art exhibition is up at the Lee Yawkey Woodson Art Museum in Wisconsin, it's the top bird exhibition in the whole world. And Suzie's been in that exhibition 8 times. Very hard to get into. About 100 works they choose every year out of 1,500 to 2,000. She's been in 8 times. She's a signature member of the Artists for Conservation, and she's been in that big international show 19 times. And in the Society of Animal Artists, she's been a signature member of the Society of Animal Artists for over 20 years and been in that show many times. And she won the Simon Coombs Award recently, which is a big famous award in the conservation world. And she also recently got juried into Western Visions, another very prestigious show in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And she's a signature member of the Women Artists of the Universe, not just the word Ohio or Michigan or America, but the whole universe, including now Mars. So Suzie's a spectacular artist, and she's been a friend of mine for over 20 years, and I hope 20 more. And so now I'd like to turn it over to Suzie, and thank you for coming today.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Thank you, David. There we go.
There we go. Give me a second.
All right.
Go ahead.
All right. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk about the process of creating a painting and what I do to create that. The first thing I do is I take a piece of masonite and I put a gray, neutral gray wash on it, or I paint over it. And I'll do that maybe 2 times. I don't sand it down or anything. I just want to get enough tooth that the paint will stick. And I like the Richardson panels. They are gray, but I put my own gray on, and I'll tell you why in a minute. They also have an umber one if you're painting Africa or southeast Arizona. And again, I'll make a gray mix with the umber in it. And the reason I do that is you can see your lights and darks immediately when you start to paint. And it has enough of a tooth where it's not like painting on a refrigerator where the paint doesn't stick. So 99% of the time I will use the gray mix. And a lot of times I'll use the gray mix as the shadow area in the painting if it's a light shadow. And I would say the gray mix that I use is probably a 5 on a black and white scale. I don't want it too dark because then you can't see, and I don't want it too light because then you're still fighting the white. So I would say a 4 or 5. And then the next thing that I'll do is I'll create a sketch of the idea. And I might do 4 or 5 of these sketches until I'm happy with the positioning, the idea. Sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. So I'll do quite a few of them. And you can see I've got the cat. The lightest part is going to be here next to probably the darkest part. And then he's sitting on a cliff. The cliff will be in shadow, and I'm going to have petroglyphs in the bottom to create interest. I want to tell a story with my paintings, and I don't want to paint a portrait of a cat in the middle of the panel because it's boring. What does it tell you? What does it do? Sometimes we use the titles to give a little bit more information. And this is going to be called Shadows of the Past because it's going to have the petroglyphs all along the bottom, the hand carving in the rocks. The next thing I'll do is I'll lay out the palette, and Anthony's going to bring up the palette. On the long side, I always put these out, and they are Payne's Gray. And when I paint these, I'll go through them first. Payne's Gray, Ultramarine, Burnt Umber, Transparent Raw Umber, Opaque Raw Umber, Burnt Sienna, Raw Sienna, Yellow Ochre, Naples, and Cad Yellow. I'll put Cad Red out if I'm putting any red on the painting, but I don't necessarily. Your Paynes, Ultramarine, and Burnt Umber create black when you put them together. And then on the top of the panel, I change this with every painting. In this case, I have Mars Yellow, Titan Mars Pale, 2 shades of neutral gray, and then something that's not on that is a dollop of the Payne's or the neutral gray background that I use. Then I have shadow green and sap green. And then I have 2 piles of white gesso, one to mix and one to keep pure. Now, when I choose my paintings, go back down to normal. When I choose my paints,
Hold on a second. Okay.
I paint very transparent. So I paint in layers, layers upon layers. I do this in oil and I do it in acrylic. So I'm looking for the paints that are most transparent. Winsor Newton are my go-to. And then, for example, Golden has a opaque raw umber. So that's what I use for my opaque raw umber. Golden has wonderful neutral grays, and I use these because when I mix a yellow, I don't get a green to push it back or to gray it off. One color that I have in here is a shadow green, and this is Holbein. And I love this color. It's transparent and it's dark. And this is just one layer of the shadow green. I can add paints to it. I can lighten it, I can darken it. Great color. And I use this a lot. This is my neutral or my transparent raw umber, and I'll use that in shadow areas on white as opposed to a Payne's gray. Sometimes I will use a transparent iron oxide, and with golden you can see at the top, you can see how transparent it is. That compared to this neutral gray, you can't see the bars beneath it. So that's how you can tell if it's transparent or not. Let's see, what else do I have in here? The Mars yellow I'm using, and this is a golden color, because the cliffs are that color. So it fits in the best for what I'm doing. I always lay out all the colors, whether I'm going to use them or not, except for cad red. And I put the paints that I'm going to use in a basket for this painting. So I'm not searching around through my piles of paints for the colors that I need. So I just pick up the basket and I can lay the paints out. And that makes it real easy for me. Any questions so far? I draw with my brush as opposed to pre-filling out the panel. And I'm going to show you why I use the neutral gray. You can see I've put some marks here to indicate lines in the rocks. And let's say I don't like them. Well, the nice thing about using the neutral gray, I can erase them.
I have a question.
Okay.
When you prime your board, whatever it is, masonite or canvas or whatever, do you use a gray gesso or gray acrylic?
It is a gray acrylic gesso, and the way I make it
I thought.
is I get equal parts of Payne's gray, transparent Payne's gray, and I use Winsor Newton for that. The golden is very, very blue, and therefore your mix will be blue. So it's equal parts of Payne's gray, ultramarine blue, and burnt umber. So you mix them all together, and then you pour white gesso in until you get the value that you want. So it starts out almost black. You add the gesso to it, and then you can stir it up. So I use that and keep that pot for all my paintings. So it lasts about a year. John used to steal mine all the time, so I'd have to put my name on the...
Thank you. Also, are you painting in acrylics or are you painting in oils?
Today is acrylics. A lot of times what I will do is I will start in acrylics. The reason I use acrylics is for softness. If something is rain or mist, or to make it mysterious, I will use acrylic. If I want vibrant colors, then I will use oil. So a lot of times, and probably I'll do it on this one, is I'll start with acrylic. I'll get the whole concept, the whole idea put in, and then I'll repaint it in oil, in a thin layer of oil. Right. So it's very bright and vibrant.
Thank you.
Okay. I do that quite a bit. You can paint acrylic first and then paint oil on top of it, but you can't do oil and paint acrylic on top.
I know.
Okay. Thank you. So basically I have all my tools here. I have straight edges, I have charcoal, so if I need to make charcoal, I have my rubber chicken, my reference for the cat, and I have done quite a bit of work on the cat. Now you can see this photograph is kind of blown out, so that's why it's important that you understand what you're painting. So I was able to get more detail out. I understand what.
I put the cat up on the screen so they can see it.
Good, perfect. This is one of the cats we work with at Triple D, and I just love the lighting on this. It's very blown out. You can't really see it very well, but I have painted this cat quite a few times, so I understand, you know, the anatomy of this cat. So my idea was to start with it as a neutral color, lighter here because that's where the sun is hitting it. I haven't put any fur in. I've just kind of blocked in the areas so I have shadow and light, and I'll continue to do that as I build up. And then I'll have the shadows here showing that it's a curved rock. It's not a flat rock, because the shadow would be different if it was flat. When I paint rocks, I always have a reference, because if you start painting rocks, you're going to get potatoes or ugly round things. So these are some of the rocks on the face cliff that we were painting last year in Du Bois. And you can see this one's got one of the petroglyphs on it. I'm not sure this is the petroglyph I'm going to use, but I want to get the ruggedness of the rock on the painting.
Susie, they want to know if you brush or roll the gesso on
I brush it on.
with no
And
sanding, correct?
I'm sorry?
And with no sanding, correct?
No sanding.
Okay.
I don't have time to sand it. And you can sometimes see the brush strokes underneath. That's okay, because it'll just add to the area that I'm doing. So.
And the rubber chicken, is this to beat yourself on the head with, or?
Absolutely. It sits here and it tells me, do it right.
Or don't be a chicken and go bold.
There we go. So you can see this area where I had some Payne's gray as a marking. And all I've done is use some of the gray names to cover it up. No, you see that was. Now I'm going to paint some rocks right now. Where's my reference? And I'm just going to start blocking in some color, and rocks have holes in them, and they're not always smooth. Rocks generally are not. So there's a couple different ways you can paint rocks. You can just put the Payne's gray on. You can take your brush and start flicking the paint on. Another thing I'll use is cellophane. What do I have any here? Pull it up, dip it in the Payne's gray, and then put it to get random patterns on the gray. Right now I can't work here because it's wet, and I'll just mess it up. So I will frequently dance all over the palette, or all over the painting. Because I do paint in transparent layers, I can paint the cat or I can paint the background. Let me tell you about the brushes I use. I mostly will use a flat brush, and this is a rake. The rake is, they've cut the tips of this real fine. That gives you great thin lines if you want. This one it's pretty obvious. Can you see how they've thinned the top of the brush? These are the gray matter from Richardson. These are simply Simons. These are really inexpensive brushes. They're about $2.50 a piece. And I go through brushes like crazy. So they create the illusion that I want, and they probably last for 4 or 5 paintings, and then I can toss them. So what I'm going to do now is start the background a little bit more, because the rocks are wet. And you can see I'm not doing any, I'm not drawing trees, or I'm just doing a random shape in the background, because I want to have the darkest darks near the lightest lights. And I will still work on the cat after I get the background in. Now, one thing that with acrylic, it can be very hard edged. So a lot of times I will go over the main subject, pulling the background into the foreground, and then the foreground into the background. So I'll let this all dry, and I'll highlight the cat again. But while this is drying, I can just, and it's just random shapes. There's nothing specific back there, just a darker color. And I like the green because mountain lions do live in the forest and have a lot of green around them. And don't be afraid to paint over the edges, because it'll just make it a lot softer. Another thing you can do at this stage, if you wanted to put patterns in the background, is you can lift off the wet acrylic paint. Not real well, it's a little dry, but you can lift it off. You've got to be careful with acrylics that you wait for it to dry before you paint on top of it again, because you'll lift it off all the way to the base of the canvas or the masonite. So I'm just adding more strength to the color here. And I'm not worried about going into the cat too much.
So am I safe to say that the gesso, the base is oil, not acrylic?
No, it's all acrylic.
Oh, it is? So you can't, it won't pull off? Okay, interesting. All right.
Even with, when I'm painting oil, the base is the gray gesso acrylic mix, because the oil will adhere to that. So this is like watching paint dry. I do use quite a few brushes for the paintings that I do. And the main reason for that is so people can think that I'm a real artist, because I have lots of paint brushes. So I'm switching to a bigger brush, because I don't have to be so delicate back here. And again, with the rocks, I don't have to be delicate either. I can just go over this. Now, sometimes I'll put as many as 50 or 100 layers of darker paint, or Payne's gray, or this shadow green, because it really gives you the illusion of depth, and you can see through acrylic paints, and the cameras can see through. So sometimes you got to be careful with what you've got underneath, because it does sometimes show through in a camera lens. Okay, so I've just quickly brushed that in. this isn't dry, so I'll make it dry. We use hair dryers frequently to dry the acrylic on here. I love painting rocks because you can get so much detail and so much stuff in the rocks. And again, I'm just doing a random pattern with the rock. And I'll put more detail in it as I go. But this is basically the color of the rocks out in Du Bois. And you can see, because I'm painting it transparently, you can see some of the things that I painted before start to show up through this. And I'll go back and emphasize them more. And one thing, it's important that you understand what your subjects are, meaning it helps if you see them in the wild. And a lot of times you really can't see a cougar in the wild. They're very secretive, and they don't like to be around humans naturally. So you can go see them at zoos. Just remember, a zoo cat's going to be a lot fatter than a wild cat. So if you know that, you can compensate for the cat. What we do is we teach at a location called Triple D in Montana, out by Wanda. And they have a lot of wild animals. They have, I don't know, 6 or 7 cougars. The cougars have babies. We get to photograph the babies. We work with the cougars during the day. We'll take 2 species out in the morning, out into the field, and it could be a cougar and a pack of wolves, for example. They'll release the cougar, and we're inside a compound, so there's nothing between us and the wild animal, and we can photograph until the cat decides it doesn't want to work anymore. And that's usually about an hour or an hour and a half. They have snow leopards. You're never going to see a snow leopard unless you go to Tibet or Mongolia. So it is such a wonderful location to be able to see these wild animals in an environment that is very close to what they would be in. They have Arctic wolves, timber wolves, gray wolves, foxes, red foxes, silver foxes, Arctic foxes, badger, mountain lion, skunk, tiger, and a leopard. So if you are interested in painting animals close up, we get within 2 or 3 feet of these big cats. They release the snow leopard on this hill that looks very similar to what you'll see in Nepal. And that cat is 10 feet away from you, and you can't see it until it moves. The camouflage is just incredible. So if you ever get an opportunity, check out Triple D. Now, I'll be there after SKB in September. So I'm just giving this rock an overall color. Not too worried about the brush strokes because they're all going to change. So now this is wet, and that's still a little wet. So, does anybody have any questions so far?
Susie, how often do you go out to Triple D?
Once a year.
Okay.
go out twice a year. We go in the snow and then we go in the fall. So you can have the fall leaves, but well, once a year is good. Right in September, they should have a lot of babies. You'll have the fall colors, and you get to choose. I think we're going to be there for 4 days, so that's 8 species that you choose that you want to shoot. And then you can stay an extra day or two and photograph even more if you choose to do that. And it is the best place in the world to see these.
Yeah, I checked it out online. And are you going directly after SKB or?
No, I'll give you the dates before I leave. I think there's a week between SKB and Triple D.
Okay.
And what we'll do there is we'll photograph the animals in the morning, and in the afternoon we'll come back and paint. And I'll teach you how to paint those animals, and especially in their environments. Now I can look at this and sit back and say, well, you know, I want this to be more interesting. So that to me is a more interesting rock. I also put my subject in a power area. So this is probably in the upper third of the panel. We call it the power area. Big animals I'll put up either in this side or this side. Smaller animals I'll put down in the lower areas. I like the animals to be looking out because it tells a story more than them looking in. If they're looking in, what are they? You just see the head and it's not telling you the story. So with the cat looking out, what is it looking at? Why is it sitting there? And the title for this one is going to be Shadows in the Past, and that's why I'm going to have the petroglyphs down here when it dries. Okay. Any other questions so far? So I'm just going to continue to put layers of color on to darken that background. And again, there are no trees back there. There's, I'm not painting little flowers. I'm just giving the illusion of trees back there, or a forest, or something dark. And the cat has come out on the rock to get some sun. Another reason to paint into the animal is you don't get halos around the animal then. A lot of times you'll get halos if you try too hard to paint around something. And then it looks like it's stuck onto the panel instead of painted on or part of the environment. We've been going to Triple D probably for 15 years as well. And they treat their animals well. It's an incredible location. And you're out in the wilderness with these guys. You do have to climb some, walk up some mountains, so it's not like going to the zoo. There is a little bit of effort, and sometimes it does get a little cold. We were out there one year and it was -6 degrees, and they had a Siberian lynx, a baby lynx, and it was the first time this lynx had ever been allowed out with people in front of him. And he played and ran in the snow and was just having a ball. And then Heather, the trainer, couldn't get him to get back into his crate. They're all crate trained. So it took about a half an hour to get that lynx back in the crate. And we just had to stand there. It was a little chilly. My brush is shedding. That's why I'm doing this.
Susie, I have a question.
Okay.
And that is, this is a painting of a cougar on a rock. How did you come up with this? Did you wake up in the morning and think, I need to paint a cougar? Or did you see some reference or something and lead to that? And if you're going to paint a cougar, why not paint the cougar closer, further away, different setting? How did this arrive at that particular design?
We have hundreds of thousands of photographs, and a lot of them are these 6x8s or whatever these are. And we have them, and I'll show you later, they're all filed according to the species. So we have bears, polar bears, black bears, grizzly bears, cinnamon bears. And I have a stack of photographs that are my go-to photographs. This is what I'm going to do next, or I'll go through this pile of photographs to decide, oh, this is what I really want to do. And I saw this cat and I saw the light on it and I thought, oh, I have to paint this. And I want to tell a story. And if I make it too big, then the story is kind of lost. With this story, the story is going to be about the petroglyphs down in the bottom. And that makes it interesting. And it also allows people to discover things later on. So the petroglyphs, and I did it on another painting, which I'll show you over there, same cat, different idea. But they're hidden. And I like to do a lot of things that are secondary points of interest. So you discover them at a later time. They're not blatant in your face. And I just love the light against the dark in this. And I thought, oh, well, this will be a perfect place to put those petroglyphs in again. So this is one of the pieces that I'm going to paint 3 different paintings for the Natural Visions show in Jackson Hole. And then I'm going to have my friends tell me which ones to submit. So this is one of the pieces. And they also said that the paintings can only be 16 by 20. So that gave me some restrictions on the size of the piece. I'm trying to paint bigger paintings, bigger sizes, to make them more interesting.
And once you start a painting like this and you're working on it, do you then get conflicting ideas about other paintings that then all of a sudden fight for your attention?
Yes, I have 3 other paintings I want to do right now, and I'll start one and I'll get halfway through and I'm bored to tears with it, and I want to get on, and it's a struggle for me to finish it. I know I have to finish it. I know it'll be a good piece, and you can already see that cat popping out on top of this rock. So you're absolutely right. I have 1,000 ideas and I just can't wait to get some of them going. So I forced myself to paint and finish it. And I paint every day that I can. I paint 7 days a week, probably about 5 hours, because I have to do our business as well. And I'm proofing John's book right now, which takes a long time. So I feel the more that you paint, the better that you're going to get at it. So paint, 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 and just come up with all sorts of ideas. We have photographs everywhere of, well, I've got piles of photographs I'll show you later. And they're my go-to. So I know that this is a good photograph, and then I can do something with it. I can change it and modify it and come up with an idea. But I think the key is creating the sketch first, because that will tell me if it's going to work or not. And I have a painting over there I'll show you. And this was the sketch for it. It is a pelican diving. And again, I wanted the dark against the light, and the pelican diving into the water. And in that case, I found an interesting panel in our warehouse, and I thought, ooh, what am I going to do with this? So that helped me come up with this idea. I needed something vertical, something that would flow through the painting and bring your eye from the top all the way to the bottom and tell a story. Another thing that we have done for years and years is we put our initials in the painting. So somewhere in the painting, there'll be a J plus an S in all of mine and all of John's paintings. So that's just one of the things that we like to do. So I'm going to work on this rock.
Well, that leads me to the next question I had, and that was the painting that you're working on here looks to be about what, 18 by 20 or something?
16 by 20.
16 by 20. And how did you arrive at that particular size that you wanted to paint this? Was it arbitrary? Was it because that you had available sitting in the corner of your studio, or?
In this case, I'm painting it for the Wildlife Museum in Jackson Hole, and they were specific. The paintings have to be 16 by 20. So that's why I did this.
Okay, that's good.
I probably would have done it 24 by 36 or 36 tall and 24 wide if they hadn't have been specific about the size on this. So, and I'm just trying to get some texture and some holes in the rock here.
Susie, do you ever work on more than one painting at a time?
Yes, frequently. Especially if I'm working in oil. I do paint very thin in oil. I do paint in layers, but sometimes it's got to dry. So I will put it aside. Before we're done here, I'll walk you around the studio and show you some of the paintings that we have here. And you know, they're leaning against the wall, they're leaning on the floor, and they're at different stages. I've got paintings behind me that I haven't finished yet. So it's a matter of what am I going to work on today? It's like Christmas, you know. You wake up and you decide what you want to open up and start. So that's what I do. That's what I want.
So I have another one, and that is you're painting, and this one here is what, acrylic?
Acrylic, yes.
And you paint just as well in oil.
Yes.
And do you have one of those? Why do you jump back and forth? What's the difference?
In acrylic, I'll start a lot of things in acrylic, and I may finish them in oil. And with the oil, I want the vibrance. I want the rich colors, the rich yellows and the rich reds, and really strong colors that you can't get in acrylics because they're very soft. So I'll do my painting, I'll do the design first in acrylic so I can fix it. I can easily fix things in acrylic where in oil you have to rub it off, and it takes a while to, I can't paint right on top of it again. So if I'm going to do something directly in oil, I'll start in oil and make it very, very, very vibrant and colorful. But again, I'm more comfortable creating the idea, getting the concept, getting the animal down correctly first, because I can fix it quickly and easily in acrylic. I do a lot in oil as well. I use the Masonite, whether it's oil or acrylic, because I can get fine detail in the Masonite. Now, the largest I'll go in Masonite is 24 by 36, because then it becomes too heavy if you're going to hang it on the wall. And our frames are thick and heavy, and you don't want to have the wall collapse on you. So, questions so far? Is this making sense to everybody? Are you having?
Question, this Jackson Hole show, is that a show or is it a museum that you're
It is
putting
a
your painting?
museum show. So it is the National Wildlife Museum in Jackson Hole. It's an invitation show to get into that. So it's very, very prestigious. I'm lucky. I'm lucky to get into that. I don't enter too many shows. I always enter Birds and Art. It doesn't mean I'm always going to get in it. Birds and Art does own one of my originals, which is it's such an honor. So they'll have specifics for what they require of you on your what you can submit. So Birds and Art, it just has to be something to do with birds. It doesn't necessarily have to be a bird. It could be a bird shadow. The painting that I'm submitting, one of the paintings I'm submitting, is petroglyphs of birds. So it's a bird, it fits into Birds and Art. Now, whether they get it or not, that's a different story. Also, when you're painting for shows, you've got to think about how the judges will view your pieces. When they're judging, there's usually 3 or more judges. They have about 3 to 5 seconds to view your painting. And if they can't see it or if they don't understand it, it's not going to make it in. So that's why it's important to have a pretty clear concept of what you want to show. I had a Birds and Art piece many years ago, which was cliff swallows, and it was, I think it was 60 inches tall and maybe 12 inches wide. Well, to see that whole thing on a screen, you couldn't see the cliff swallows. So it was kind of a wasted idea. It didn't work for Birds and Art, but I did sell it. So I guess it did work. So those are things to think about. They only have about 5 seconds, and you've got to follow the rules. If they tell you that it's got to be a 16 by 20 and you submit a 20 by 24, they're going to kick you out. So it's important to follow the rules. I'm just adding more texture, more color. I'm letting the paint drip around because it adds a, I don't know, looseness, a more natural feel. And I used to have cellophane. Oh, I think I found it. This is also a secret weapon for rocks. Has anybody ever tried this before?
Yeah.
You take it and you crumple it up. Let me get some paint out here. And then you just dip it in the Payne's gray or whatever color you want. And it makes cool rocks.
Susie, can you hear me?
Now I can.
Okay. When you go larger than 24 by 36 and you can't use masonite, what do you go to canvas or what do you do?
Yes, portrait canvas, very fine, the finest Belgium linen that you can get. Because I like to do a lot of detail and it's hard to see. Well, I like detail. With a lot of the canvases, they're so rough, you can't get some of the fine lines. So I do use the fine canvas, and so did John.
And you use the same gesso for your background when on that kind of surface?
Absolutely, and it seals the canvas, which is important. So yes, I will put the gray mix on a white canvas, and then again, I can see my values right away. I'm not fighting the white of the canvas. I can see the values. So, and a lot of times, if you do seal the canvas with the gesso, it stays nice and tight. And now a trick that we've learned, we live in Florida, and the weather here is different than when it gets shipped to, Wyoming or Texas. And sometimes the canvases will loosen up. Well, you just take a big paintbrush, dip it in water, and wipe it over the back of the canvas, and it'll tighten it up right away.
That's interesting. Thank you. Yeah.
Now, is this beginning to look a little bit more like rocks on the piece? A little bit, yeah. I've got a long way to go yet, so. But I can take different colors. Let's see. I'll take some of this gray, and I like to just sprinkle on it and then I can go in and start working the rock area. Oh, I forgot to tell you about this is one of my props here. When I worked for the CIA, when I left, they gave this to me, my disguise. So that's a few years old. And that's always on my canvas.
I forgot to mention that in the beginning, Susie, that Susie is an actual former CIA operative, that she's undercover right now. So don't tell anybody where she lives.
Okay, let's see. I'll let this dry a bit. Anybody have any questions at all? You can see the palette is a gray palette. Again, when I lay everything out, I can see my values right away. Underneath the gray palette is a piece of glass that we painted with the gray mix underneath. So we used to scrape this off every night. And I'm a lazy painter. This is so much easier just to take it up and throw it away. Another thing that you might want to do, since you guys are all artists, we will take the palette and write the name of the painting on it and give it to the person that buys it. We'll sign it and give it to them. So that's helpful. With the oil paints, what we'll do is we'll mix up a big pot of a specific color if we need to, and we'll freeze it. Or we'll take our palette if we haven't finished for the day and put a piece of saran wrap over it and stick it in the freezer. And you pull it out the next day, you still have your colors, you still have your palette. So that's a helpful thing that we do a lot as well. Let's see, any other questions? Before we leave, I'm going to show you how to varnish a painting as well. We don't really get the chance to do that at SKB because we just don't have the time and we don't have a place to do it. We use liquid when we varnish. So I'll show you that when in a bit. I'm going to work on the.
Question.
Yes.
If you're in Florida, you have to ship to Wyoming.
Yeah.
With the frame. So who ships for you?
That's a good question. I have a system that is called Unishippers. Have you ever heard of them? They're
No.
a wholesaler. So they have like 50 little people that are under their account number, and you can ship UPS, ship trucking, and you get a discount because all of these people are under that umbrella. So I would suggest contacting shipper in your area, and that way you get a discount and you don't pay for it until it's delivered, and they can do all the tracing and all that. When we ship, depending on the size, we either use crates or we'll use a strong box going to a museum. The strong boxes are heavy duty cardboard with masonite in the front and egg crate foam, so the paintings don't move and they don't get damaged. You can get them in any size, the boxes in any size. UPS, FedEx, and the other agencies will only take up to 60 inches via air because that's the door. You can't get anything bigger than 60 inches in one direction through the door. So if we've got a 60 by 60 painting with the frame in a crate, that's got to be shipped via truck line. And that's something that Unishippers also offers. So you pull that LDL down and you'll get 5 quotes on how long it will take and how much it will cost you to ship the dimensions to that location. So we've used quite a few freight companies. I don't insure anything. The reason for that is it will cost you a fortune. I also don't call it fine art. I call it display material. Because if they find out that it's fine art and if they find out the value is $25,000 or $30,000, they won't insure it or they won't carry it, or they may steal it. We haven't had anything stolen in about 40 years, and we've only had one thing damaged in about 30 years. So I pack the paintings so I know that they're packed well. We use a lot of cardboard on both sides, wrap it in bubble wrap, and then put it in either the strong boxes or heavy duty boxes or crates. So I know that if I pack it, it's not going to get damaged by bouncing around inside the crate.
And what does a 16 by 20 or a little bit larger generally cost you? Average range
To ship?
To ship cross country, because I've shipped a couple things myself through United Parcel.
Okay, I would say probably about $30 or $40.
Yeah, that's what I paid.
Again, I haven't
Give
done
or
it.
take the weight of the frame, etc.
The frame and everything.
Use a skinny frame.
Well, that's something that's important to know. Is we use frames that are and that perceived value that the painting is worth more because it's a wide frame. If you have a 1-inch frame on it, the perception is it's not as valuable.
Very good tip.
So you can get a $30 frame at Michael's, a 1-inch frame, and put it on your $200 painting, and it looks like a $200 painting in a $30.
Correct.
You put that $200 painting in a 4-inch frame that you get from JFM or San Diego frame. That might cost you $40, but then you have a painting that looks like it's worth $500, and it's not going to cost you as much. So do some research. We use JFM when we can get the frames. We have custom frames from Montgomery Frames, pricey, and San Diego Frames, which are pretty reasonable. But they're all custom and they will take at least a month to create them. We use two different types of frames. We use a silver frame, and I don't have any of them here. They're all down at our warehouse. And again, it's a wide frame. And then we use a distressed wood frame that's probably 8 inches. It's got a gold fillet on the inside and gold, little gold things in the corners. The perceived value is, whoa, this is a big painting because it's got a big, heavy frame on it. And people will pay more money for it. And you don't necessarily have to add that to your painting. We don't add frames to our paintings, but our prices are a little bit higher than most people. So we just absorb that into our cost. But if you're just starting out, you can get a $40 frame from JFM, and you can add that to the cost of your paintings, and it's not going to blow it out of the water. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just give my paintings away and I pay for shipping and everybody gets them for free. Family, friends, try to get rid of them.
Well, you can send one to me. You can send one to David.
Tina has a question for you, Susie.
Okay. All right. I'm not hearing anything.
What kind of medium do you use with your oil paints?
Just let's see if I've got it here. The Mona Lisa odorless paint thinner. That way it kills you and you can't smell it killing you. So that's basically all we use is just the Mona Lisa. But we have to, we have a small studio and we put them in jars. Let me see if I've got one. Yeah. And we seal these jars tightly at night because there is an odor to them and it is dangerous. But we don't use any other medium other than the terps, and we do glaze with liquid. So if I want to do, for example, if I want to glaze this in oil afterwards, all I need is a little bit of liquid and the color. It thins it out, but still keeps the color. And then I can glaze several times and it dries quickly. Also with liquid, this is how we varnish our paintings, is with liquid. And I'll show you that in a bit. You can varnish it and then, I need to fix this or I need to go back. You can go back over and fix it, whether it's acrylic or oil, and then just re-liquid it. So
you don't use walnut oil or any of the oils with the oils to thin it out, or you just use transparent paint?
Yeah.
To thin it?
Thin it.
Okay. And is this Mona Lisa dangerous, or do you have to have a ventilation or?
It's John reacted to it, which is probably why he got the cancer he did. But it's not. It is odorless. It is not supposed to be dangerous. But I think if you've been working with turpentines for 40 or 50 years, it does affect you. So we don't like the water soluble oils because it doesn't work the same way as oil. And we have used a friend of ours, Bobby, sent us, or Billy, sent us a whole set of oils to use. And they're really great, except it takes a long time for the painting to dry. And I'm impatient. I want it to dry right away. So that's strips and liquid. So
And
It'll-
so you wouldn't use liquid as a thinner for your oils.
yes, I would.
Liquid.
Absolutely.
You
Uh,
can. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And that way you get a real transparent color because it's been cut with the liquid, and it's real smooth and real nice, and it seals your
Okay, great.
and you can work over them again. Good. Any
Okay,
other?
and for acrylic, for acrylic you'd use just water, right? For
Yes.
acrylic paints.
Just plain water. I have a big pot of it here, little brass pot, and that's all I use. I don't use any medium because acrylic dries so fast, and if it's not drying fast enough, I'll get the hair dryer out and dry it with that. So
Okay.
we don't use any mediums at all. It just makes it sticky. Okay. One
Great,
of the
thanks.
in oil found, let me see if I can find it here. My oil paints out. In oil, your white is the slowest to dry. So Gamblin has this thing called Fast Matte, and they have it in several colors, and this will dry overnight. So it's a very unique oil. I don't know what they put in it. It's great. It's a titanium white, but it dries quickly. Normally with a white on an oil painting, it might take, depending on how thick, it could take days to weeks for it to dry, where this will dry overnight. So we use this a lot, and it does come in other colors than the white. So, okay. Other questions?
Yes, I've used permalpa white, and it seems to lessen the drying time for oils.
Okay.
Permalpa, but it's hard to come by. Some stores have it, some don't.
Are you going to be able to show the painting of the fur? Is that too far from the camera angle you're at?
I can bring it in. The fur is just blocked in. And what I'm doing is I'm painting the illusion of fur. I'm not painting every single hair that's on the cat. So you can see I've put some detail around the neck area where there's, the skin separates, or the hair separates. Again, it's not every single hair. It's just the illusion of fur. And I do that by doing layer upon layer with a rake. I'll show you that on maybe on the other cat. You can see more of the hair. Does this help you guys?
Yes, or nodding.
Okay.
Susie,
Yes. Mhm.
for your submission to Western Visions or Birds and Art, do you submit the actual painting, or do you have to be approved to be in the show before you actually submit?
Good question. For Western Visions, that's an invitation. So, and they have specific things for that. On Birds and Art, anybody can enter, which is great. They have about 5,000 people that enter every year, and you can just Google Birds and Art and get the prospectus. It's available right now. And I think their cutoff, is April. So it's coming up. There are all sorts of shows that you can enter. American Women Artists have shows that you can enter. And they will be specific if you're a signature member, or if you're just a member, or if you're trying to get into the association. There are magazines that have art shows that you can enter. And it's okay, it might cost you $35, and I have a whole drawer of rejections, but at least every time you do it, you learn a little bit more about what they are looking for and what
Right.
who the judges are. Although every year the judges may change. So Birds and Art might have a European series of judges. So they're looking more at the European style of painting than they are the Americans. So a lot of Americans don't make it in. Well, you know, that's part of trying to get into shows.
Right.
There are in the back of a lot of magazines, American International Artist Magazine. Do I have it here? We'll have listings of shows in the back. And some will be real specific. You've got to be a resident of Maryland to enter this show. You've got to, have purple hair and gray toenails to, but they'll tell you what you can enter. Also, another good thing to try to get into are shows, booth shows, indoor shows. With most wildlife art, it's too expensive to sell in the tents at street fairs and things like that. That is hard work. And most people that go to those street fairs, they're looking for something that's $25. So if you have a painting that's $200 or $2,000, you're not in their market area. So make sure you understand what the market is before you apply. I did those street shows for a while, and oh my God, they are brutal. People will, how come you charge so much money and there's no paint on it, and the stories are awful. But there are a lot of good shows like the Plantation Show in Thomasville, Georgia. There is the Waterfowl Festival in Maryland. Seerey is a really good show to get into. And these shows, there's one in Tulsa, Nature Works, I think it is. There's one in San Diego. They provide you the booth. So all you have to do is go in and fill the booth with your paintings. They will take the payments, they will pay the taxes, and then they give you a check or mail you a check at the end. So that's a fun way. And those are great shows. You get to see all your friends, and we have a lot of fun. If you behave. John didn't always behave at those shows. So but if you're going to do a show, I'm going to give you a real quick idea on shows. And booth shows are really good, especially if you're starting out. Losing my voice.
Excuse me.
So,
With the COVID, with this virus thing, this year has been kind of a dead year.
yes. So enter the shows that are online. Enter the shows that are in the magazines and things like that. When these shows get ready to open up again, you want to be ready for them. Now, this is a typical booth in a show, in an indoor show. So you have your main area. Sorry. It's dry here. I'm not used to talking this much.
Excuse me, did I hear you say you're not used to talking this much?
Yeah.
I mean, excuse me.
Okay, for a show, you're going to have your main piece right in the center. You don't want to have anything blocking it. You don't want any furniture there. You don't want to stop people from getting in. Then the paintings on the side, sorry, you want the animals facing in that way, animals facing in this way. So they're all pointing to the center. It's a psychological trick to get people interested. Big piece in the center.
And at these, Susie, at these booth shows, while you're taking a drink, you can sell paintings that are more expensive, more pricey than you would sell at just, you know, a local art fair type of show.
Yes, I would say the average piece at some of the shows are going to range between $3,000 and $20,000.
Okay.
So
And they take a percentage?
they do take a percentage. It's generally less than a gallery. They ship. So all you have to do is kind of show up and look pretty and sell your art.
Okay.
And one of the things that I teach at SKB is how to sell art, because there are tricks to it. And you want to be subtle about it, and you don't want to offend people. And there are really fun ways to get people to buy. So you got to come to SKB to find that out.
I'm already signed up, so.
Hey, Susie, would you like to take a 5-minute break? And I'll tell people about the SKB.
Yes, let me go get something. Thank you.
Okay. Those of you who we keep talking about the SKB workshop. And for those of you who don't know or who haven't been out there, this is one of the best workshops in the country. And it's held in Du Bois, Wyoming, which is about a little over an hour and a half west of Yellowstone of Jackson Hole. It's about an hour west of Yellowstone National Park and a little less than Teton National Park. There's one road that runs from there all the way across Wyoming, all the way down into eastern Wyoming. And when we drive out there, it's really a spectacular experience to drive into Du Bois from, say, we fly into Denver and drive up from Denver and come in through the eastern corner. And it's just 75 miles this way, 75 miles that way, just big and flat, no trees, or every 100 yards, every 100 miles, there's a tree. So those of you who get afraid that you're not going to see trees, but it's a spectacular landscape. And Du Bois is set at about 7,000 feet up in the highlands of high country of Wyoming. The workshop runs a full 5-day week that begins actually on Sunday, which is the registration day. And that's when everybody usually comes in then, and they register. And then in the evening, we have a large gathering and welcoming everybody. And Pam Cable, the executive director, and many of the board members of the Susan Kathleen Black Foundation, you can meet them. And Pam then gives a highlight over what the week's going to be. She introduces the teachers that are going to be working and makes contact with everybody who comes. And the unique thing that began last year because of COVID was that we had to develop this Zoom workshop capacity. And we did it very quickly. There was a few wrinkles last year, and but Anthony did a fantastic job. I couldn't go 2 days before we left, and I had to I had something else that came up. And, but this year we're going and we'll come in. We're actually anticipating a larger crowd than last year. And because things are opening up, Wyoming is opening up. And so we're anticipating a large normal gathering. I mean, normally, just to give you an idea of workshop size, this workshop normally has between 75 and 125 artists who come in from all over the world. And then it'll have at least a dozen instructors and who also come in from all over the world. And I mean, it's a big event. That's why it's called a rendezvous as well as a workshop. It's really a gathering of artists. It's become like a family of artists, and it's relatively informal and very relaxed. And you can go out plein air painting in the wild, or you can stay in and work in the studios. It's one of the best workshops I teach all over the country.
Absolutely.
And so that's where Suzie will be. That's where Anthony will be. That's where I will be, and another dozen instructors. And we'd love to see you out there. And this is the only place I teach where when I go out painting, you actually have to be aware that there's grizzlies in the woods. I mean, serious grizzlies. So we have a whole thing for for any of you who paint plein air, painting plein air in Wyoming has some additional criteria. But fortunately, we have no grizzlies indoors. We don't let the grizzlies come into the building. We don't let them register, and they can't paint very well anyway because they got those big paws. You know, they can't hold the brush, and they're too concerned about eating. So grizzlies don't make good painters. So we don't have any grizzlies in the classes. Anyway, are you back, Suzie?
Yep, I'm back.
All right,
Thank you. Sorry about that.
take it away.
All right, I'm going to show you how to varnish a painting. Down here in Florida, we tried the spray Daymar paint and stuff. With our humidity, that would fog up a painting immediately. And it just doesn't work. So we use liquid. Now, you need to photograph your painting before you varnish it. We photograph all paintings because we keep a record of everything, which is another thing I'll teach you at SKB is how to keep a record of everything. Okay, to paint, to varnish a piece, I go to Dollar Tree and get a bunch of $1 brushes because I throw them away. This is a painting that's been photographed. It's done in
the picture.
I'm sorry? What was the question?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't.
It's all good, go, Suzie, go on.
Okay, so it's already been photographed. You can't photograph them once they're varnished because you'll get too much reflection from the light. So I have liquid on the palette. Just brush it on, and you can see how the colors just pop out after it's been varnished or after it's been gessoed.
This was an acrylic painting?
This was an acrylic piece, yes. So just randomly covered the whole painting. And then the key are Bounty paper towels. And the reason we use Bounty is they don't leave little pieces of white stuff on the painting. So we fold it And then very, very gently, you rub it into the painting in a circular manner. And what this does is it gets rid of the brush marks and it seals the piece.
Susie,
Yes.
is it with your liquid, is it a gloss finish or is it a satin finish?
It's kind of a matte finish, but you can get it as glossy as you want. We had one painting that we liquided it too many times and it was so shiny that you couldn't see the painting.
Hmm.
So needless to say that that didn't work.
The more you apply, the shinier it is.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, and you can see that it'll just be.
Is liquid not a acrylic compound? So can you use it on oils?
I use it on oil all the time, and I use it. Sorry. Oil to thin the oil medium. I'm going to walk you around the studio. So you can... I'm sorry. So this is my easel. It is a Hughes easel. They're absolutely wonderful because you can push them up and down with just a fingertip. And then I have paintings that I haven't finished that I'm still working on. And then this is where John's easel is. And this is where we photograph the paintings. And we have daylight bulbs. We have daylight bulbs. Can you see this all right?
Yeah, looks
See the
good.
painting? Okay. And we can teach you how to photograph your paintings. Then we lean paintings up against the wall. This is one of John's that I'm framing tomorrow. So this will get shipped out. And we have a few books. And then this is the piece I showed you of the sketch that I did. You can see how tall it is. And this is one of my birds and art pieces. Then this is another one of my birds and art pieces. This is the one with the petroglyphs. Can you see the petroglyphs here? So they're all birds.
Kind of hard to see, but yes,
Okay, it's kind of shiny, isn't it?
correct.
And here's one of John's. It's a big grizzly bear. And we have paintings just lying all over the place. We have thousands of paintings. These are all field studies that we've done, hundreds and hundreds of those. We have prints. And then I was going through some drawers the other day and found all these treasures. Here's a Bob Bateman piece. Here's a Carl Brender's piece. And these are just in the one of the drawers that John had put. So some of these are going into the new, well, not Bateman's, or John's pieces will be going in the new book. And I'll have them for sale as well. So if anybody is interested. But these are cool little treasures, sketches that he had done, ideas. This one turned into a painting. This one turned into a painting. Can you see the baby wolves?
Yes.
These were ideas for paintings. This one made it into the book, and it was also a print with Mill Pond. So these are cool little things. If you sketch a lot and sketch and sketch and sketch, these little treasures you can turn around and sell. Some people may not want a Garanuke, but somebody, may. There's a moose. Hippos. And these are just pen and ink, just ballpoint pen. And we have little sleeves that we put them in. This was done with his watercolors. And I think they're kind of cool. This hyena is cool. There's one that he put more color on. And this one is a Theodore Roosevelt piece. And this one made it into it's kind of dark. There's another one. So these are little treasures that you can do. They're just done on paper, on sketch paper. This one was done in 1980. So that's an old one. And he may have done them in the field while we're sitting it in the vehicle.
You guys date your sketches or you just sketch them and leave them?
Some are dated. This one is 2010. And this was a sketch for a bigger painting. So he did more detail to figure out if this would work. It's called Pillars of the Past. And then he loved Teddy Roosevelt. So these are some sketches he did of Teddy Roosevelt. Another one, you can see he drew the full ram, but this is what made it into the painting. So these are cool little treasures. Another Roosevelt one. Some are colored. And this one is 2004. So that made it into a book. Another Teddy Roosevelt. So these are things that you can do. Another hunting scene of dogs. We have hundreds of these paintings that Polar Bear here. That's just started, but I think that's a cool painting just as it is. So these are things that you can do yourself. Then, of course, we have the palettes and the painting, and they've been signed. So these are kind of fun to give away as gifts. People will frame them and put them next to their pieces. And we have more books and more books. We have a lot of props that we use, snowshoes, canteens, moose, just all sorts of stuff. So, and then where I'm working on drawing. So that's basically our studio. Here are our folders full of photographs. So this drawer is probably about 4.5 feet. We probably have about 10,000 photographs in that. And then we have another one back here. And then,
Susie, we can't hear you now.
can you hear me?
Now we can.
Okay, and then we have boxes of more photographs that they're all filed by species or bears or log cabins or whatever. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, I do, because I'm always cleaning up my artwork and my studio work and everything. Do you have children that can help you out here to clean your studio up someday?
No. I just have dogs and cats. And we don't throw anything away. For example, I struggled with a painting for about a month. It was an owl flying out of the forest, and yeah, I struggled with it. I changed it, and it just wasn't working. So I put it in the garage, and that's what we call a garage painting. So maybe a year from now, I'll pull it out of the garage and go, now I know what to do with this painting. So we have flat drawers for sketches. We've got quite a few of them. We have a garage full of paintings. We have a warehouse full of paintings. So we really don't throw anything away. We just recycle them. Sometimes we repaint them. So
I guess my question is this. Do you think of your successors, anyone who will succeed you? Because I'm always thinking that way. To take over your shop here.
I'm afraid there probably isn't. John has a son, but he's really not interested in any of this. John has about 30 sketchbooks, so they'll go to museums. All these
Paintings.
paintings will go to museums when I go. So, and some of them will probably go to museums before I go. But I want to carry on his legacy. But yeah, that is a question. One of the things that I asked Pam, I wanted to donate all of our photographs because they're things we've taken, for 30 or 40 years. And people don't have the opportunity to go to Africa. And we have all these wonderful shots from Africa and Alaska and Hawaii and Spain. And it's just, where do they house them? How do they let people have access to them? So that's something that I got to figure out so that his legacy continues. And I think that's important for people to.
Well,
Thank you. Thank you for a wonderful workshop.
I think we're going to call it quits for today. This has been fabulous visiting with Suzie, and we're going to give her voice a chance to rest up here. I want to thank you guys for sitting in on this, and we look forward to seeing you. We have Zoom shares like this that will be going on now between now and September, and mine's next week, so I'll be looking for every one of you.
Great.
And if you haven't signed up for the workshop, there's still availability left for in-person, and definitely we have room for Zoom.
And so, Christina, what was your question there?
Press your space bar down. Can't hear you.
Christina, press down
Can you
on
hear
your
me?
space. There you go.
There you go.
Okay. I saw your sketches and you said you might be selling them. Would you be interested in selling one of your sketches from John's work and maybe the tiger from Bateman? Because I went to the Robert Bateman workshop and I think mounds of your husband's work and your work as well, but I'd like to have that with my collection.
I won't
Is
sell.
it possible?
Yes, it is. I won't sell Bob's piece because that was a gift to us, and same with Carl Brender's
Oh,
piece.
yeah.
Sell that, but yes, I will sell the sketches. If there was one that you saw, you can email me, and I'll send you photographs of
Okay.
the ones that are available. And they're only 2 or 3.
Do you have an email?
Just kidding.
Huh? Couldn't hear that.
I said
Couldn't hear it?
$3 million.
Oh, well, hey, I'll take 10.
Okay.
Do you have an email address?
My email
Email.
is S as in Sam, EEREY LESTER@msn.com. It's our last name without the hyphen.
Okay,
Yes, I
great, thanks.
could sell those, yes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for showing up today.
Thank
And we'll see you next week, same time. And hope you have a good week. I hope you enjoyed this one.
And
Thank
thank you.
I really,
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
long.
bye.
Bye.
Bye now.